Greetings aspirants. Welcome to Narayana IAS Daily News Analysis. My name is Shivnath Mamilla. I have picked up few important articles from The Hindu and Indian Express for mains and preliminary examination perspective. Here are the list of articles. The first article is about women reservation and statement given by Supreme Court from The Hindu, page number 1. And the second important article is about fake news, retrograde step, Hindu, page number 8. The third article is about demographic dividend, a matter of graying, Indian Express, page number 11. And the fourth article is about dam safety. It is from Hindu, page number 6. And the last important article we have taken up is Zika virus and its outbreak in Karnataka, also from Hindu, page number 6. We'll try to take up the first article for analysis. The first article is difficult to press for women's quota before Lok Sabha poll, Supreme Court. It is based on the statement given by the Supreme Court. If you try to see the relevance for UPSC examination, women empowerment is the topic where it is relevant. And if you try to see the general studies paper, it is relevant for general studies paper 1, Indian society, role of women. If you take general studies paper 2, it is relevant for mechanisms, laws, institutions and bodies constituted for the protection and betterment of these vulnerable sections. So we also have a previous year question from this arena which goes like, though women in post-independent India have excelled in various fields, the social attitude towards women and feminist movement has been patriarchal. Apart from women education and women empowerment schemes, what intervention can help change this milieu? So this is the previous year question. So coming to the article for analysis. So there are proceedings underway in Supreme Court about implementation of women quota. We know that 106th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed, bringing Article 239 AA and clauses, which is giving 1/3 of seats in Parliament and state legislature for women. And the provisions, the important provisions of this act are allocation of 1/3 of seats in the state and central legislature. This allocation is to be done after conducting delimitation exercise post 2026 census. All the contestants here would participate under general category. Thus, the categorization was not done for women into SC, ST or OBC in this particular amendment act. So if you try to see the significance of this particular constitutional amendment, there was wide political consensus on passage of bill. Especially in Lok Sabha, the bill passed with 454 votes and the bill passed in Rajya Sabha with 214 votes, which reflects wide consensus. And the next important significance of this is Inter-Parliamentary Union gave a report where it states that women constitute only 14.44% of the total members of Lok Sabha. It is important that we improve the representation of women. And if you take Esther Duflo and Raghavendra Chattopadhyay report, which was published in 2011, who studied Gram Panchayats in Rajasthan and West Bengal, showed that where women heading panchayats, investments are increased in the sectors like education, water and roads, especially the infrastructure. So promotion of inclusive growth by mitigating the stereotypes through social engineering, the persuasion of the general public is one of the significance of this particular Constitutional Amendment Act. If you try to see the issues with the bill, the first issue we need to take up is upper caste women versus lower caste women, or maybe upper class women versus lower class women. Similarly, urban women versus rural women. So upper caste women, upper class women or urban women will have more opportunity to get representation in the legislature when compared to lower caste women, lower class women and rural women. This is such important issue. And the next important one is linking the extension of these reservations to conducting of census post 2026. So the opposition and the civil society always questions the intention of government behind this particular implementation provision, right? They are thinking that government is trying to use this particular constitutional amendment for advantage in elections, in upcoming elections. That is the reason why we see petitions in Supreme Court at present. And there is an issue of Sarpanch Pati in local bodies, Pradhan Pati, where the women were given representation only for namesake, where the husbands are running the affairs behind the scene. The next important document, which is in contrast with what I've said in the previous slide, in 2008, the paper by Vijayendra Rao and Radhuban showed that the villages where women were heading the local body performed no differently when compared to the male counterpart. And they believe that the institutional factors played a more prominent role in deciding the outcomes than women heading the institution or man heading the institution. So we have to highlight the patriarchal attitude of the society, which ultimately is the cause of gender stereotypes, discrimination of women in all social spheres. If you take up a reservation, if you take up positive discrimination, we always discuss these issues in education. Similarly, in opportunities. Then we talk about in representation of legislature. So they were discriminated in all these social institutions to get a fair chance to participate in legislature may lead to good opportunities, may lead to women getting into institutions and their betterment of social position in present democratic society. Why there is lower political participation of women in politics until now? So the first one is patriarchal attitude of the society. The Inter-Parliamentary Union report clearly ranked India 140 out of 186 in terms of representation of women in parliament. So women were not given chance in universities, not given chance in workplace, and women were also not given chance in legislature till now. Although there is evolution post constitution and post 73rd and 74th Amendment Act, there is betterment of women position in society, but still there is so much to go. And the next important one need to keep in mind, the gender related violence discourages women from exploring politics. So the patriarchal society and the gender related violence, we have a clear cut data where we are taking up NCRB data, which shows that the violence against women increased from 56.5% in 2020 to 64.5% in 2021 per 1 lakh population. So one side, there are crimes against women, increasing crimes against women, and the social environment in legislature is also not favorable to women. If you take up the report of ADR, Association for Democratic Reforms, and National Election Watch report, it is clearly saying that 40% of MPs in India have criminal cases. So this is not encouraging environment for women to participate in legislature. And if you take economy, if you take economic participation of women, if you try to see the women participation in workforce, periodic labor force participation rate of women is just 32.8% as per the data of 21-22. So there are many spheres, even though post-constitution, post-73rd and 74th Amendment Act, there is betterment of position of women in society. There is so much to go and this particular constitutional amendment has the potential to bring this particular change in the society where women will have voice in all the social institutions, whether it is micro or macro. The next important article we take up for analysis is retrograde step. A government panel to check facts is liable to be misused against critics. This is the important article, and this is important in the context of IT rules 2021 and freedom of speech and expression. If you see preliminary examination, it is relevant for political system and rights issues. For mains, it is relevant for GS2 Indian polity. So in this area, we have a previous year question which goes like, what are social networking sites and what security implications do these sites present? So getting into the context, the Tamil Nadu government decision to constitute a fact-checking unit, FCU, to deal with the misinformation and disinformation pertaining to state government emanating from all media platforms, print, electronic, social media, etc. The center's notification of the IT rules in April, which amended the Information Technology Rules 2021 and allowed MeitY, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, to appoint a similar fact-checking unit. So the focus here is FCU. So there were batch of petitions checking or questioning the constitutional validity of the amendment, which are heard in Bombay High Court in September. In this context, we are taking this particular article for analysis, and the aspiration behind this is to accommodate and balance the conflicting interest to combat misinformation and protection of freedom of speech, which is going to be a delicate challenge for the state. So if you try to see the problems in creating FCU, the first one is foundational problems, which affects freedom of speech. There is a possibility of government to censor or control over what can be said or shared on media platforms. The second important problem is that definition of misinformation and disinformation. The possibility of selective or biased fact-checking that serves the government interest rather than the objective of truth. That is going to be another important problem. There is a fair amount of chance that there will be abuse. There is a potential for abuse. Units established under the government's authority could be used to suppress the dissent and silence the criticism or target political opponents, further undermine the democratic principles which were laid down in preamble of Indian Constitution. So last but not least, the privacy concerns. Fact-checking often requires to access wide range of data and information, potentially raising concerns about users' privacy and surveillance. So these are the foundational problems. If you take practical problems, the transboundary nature of this digital age. Misinformation often transcends borders, and international cooperation is very much necessary to address this issue effectively. And limitations in functioning, the internet and social media enable the rapid spread of information. A fact-checking unit may struggle to keep in pace with the volume and speed of misinformation. The size of this particular information, whether FCU can deal it or not, is a questionable problem. So motives of creating such FCU can be laudable, but institutions without necessary safeguards will allow fair criticism of the government to tackle false news, which will infringe upon the freedom of speech and expression guaranteed under Article 19(1)(a). So There has to be clear-cut boundary. There should be no vagueness here. One should know what has to be opaque and what has to be transparent here. This is going to be challenging even for FCU in defining such scenario. So what can be done? What are the safeguards one should take in creating such units? Ensuring the necessary safeguards. To be effective, fact-checking units should be independent and impartial, right? There should not be any influence from government. There should not be any partisan attitude in dealing this institution. Creation of independent monitoring network. Promote independent, non-partisan or impartial FCUs or organization by involving civil society, by involving NGOs, journalists, and other broader stakeholders of the society. So proactive dissemination. States have their information and publicity departments that can clarify on news related to them. So media literacy and education is another important arena one should focus on. Promote media literacy programs in schools, communities to evaluate information sources for accuracy. Invest in public awareness campaigns to educate the public about the dangers of misinformation and disinformation. It is important that all the stakeholders know the serious consequences of this misinformation and disinformation. So what should be done? What can be done? The technological intervention. Explore the use of artificial intelligence and automation tools to assist in identifying or flagging the potential misinformation, and encourage collaboration with journalists, especially to promote ethical reporting practices and to maintain high standards of accuracy and fairness, which is very much important for democratic process. With the tech companies to improve algorithms and features that can help identify and limit the spread of misinformation. So one should curtail the speed or the volume of such information using or collaborating with such big tech companies, tech giants. So as I said, technological cooperation is required. International cooperation is also required. Engage international efforts to combat misinformation and disinformation, and all the challenges one should understand are in global nature. So this misinformation and disinformation cannot be curtailed without international cooperation and broader consensus. So another last but important, research and analysis. Invest in research and analysis of origin, drivers, and impact. So have this three-pronged approach to deal the problem, where we'll try to trace the origin and we'll try to trace the driver and we'll try to understand the impact of this particular piece of misinformation or disinformation. So this is very much important in mains perspective when you're dealing with social media, when you're dealing with a digital age, when you're dealing with the fake news and impact of this on society. So with this, I'll wind up this article and I'll get into next important article. The next important article I am taking up is a matter of graying. By the turn of the century, not only will India's population have substantially declined, it will also be much older. So are we prepared for this particular demographic shift? This is what article is talking about. This is what the writer is questioning about. If you see the title, A Matter of Graying, if you try to see the relevance for UPSC, the topic of relevance is demographic dividend, United Nations publication on Population Fund Report 2019 and India Aging Report 2023. This is UPSC relevance. And if you try to see the syllabus for mains, GS paper 2, issues relating to development and management of human resources. In this background, the context of the article is the dynamics of India's population is changing dramatically. It's becoming not only smaller, but significantly older. So at the state level, the replacement level, the population size is less than the replacement level, which is shrinking now, and also it is becoming significantly older. The question is, are we equipped to navigate this profound demographic shift? That is the fundamental question we need to have. So in this context, what is demographic dividend? Right? In normal economic sense, business sense, we speak about dividend, the distribution of profit, dividend, the material benefit, dividend, the productivity benefit, the dividend. So in this context, demographic dividend refers to the economic advantage that a country can potentially gain when its working age population, in this sense 15 to 64 years, normally independent people, significantly outnumbers its dependent population, which is less than 15 and more than 64. So how these young population of the country can bring economic advantage in this particular period of transition? If they couldn't, then we may call it as demographic disaster also. So in this context, UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund, it's a specialized agency within the UN system. It is a mandate established by UN Economic and Social Council. The aim of it is to achieve sustainable development goals of health, education, and gender equality. So focus areas are normally sexual and reproductive health, gender equality, and education at the present times. So the budget normally is not from United Nations budget. It depends and relies more on voluntary contributions. So if you see this particular UNFPA's report 2019, it says by 2027, India's population will overtake China's population to become most populous country in the world. But India overtook China by this 2023 only. We are way ahead than what they expected. Between 2019 and 2050, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, Congo, Tanzania, Indonesia, Egypt, and United States will show the highest increase in population and will make half of the world population. That is what the demographic trend you should understand. The population of sub-Saharan Africa will double by 2050. These are the findings of UNFPA. So if you come to India's Aging Report 2023, it is like UNFPA India in partnership with IIPS. Over the past 1 decade, the elderly population has witnessed a growth rate of 41%, right? It is like increase in the dependent population. Projections indicate that by 2050, the elderly group will constitute 20% of India's populace, which is going to become very significant dependent population. It is expected that elderly population will outnumber the children, which is less than 15, as I said, by 2046. So more than 40% of the elderly individuals in India belong to the lowest wealth quintile. This is one serious concern one has to keep in mind. Southern states surpass the national average in terms of elderly population share. So the demographic challenges, when you try to compare this with the developing and developed world, so the challenges here are: developing countries are witnessing at present lower fertility rate sooner in development journey than developed countries. Developed countries had much higher per capita income by the time they got old, but countries like India do not enjoy such kind of luxury. So according to UNFPA statistics, in developing countries, old age dependency ratio could be more than double in the next 50 years. The same case for developed countries took at least 150 to 200 years. So these are the challenges when you try to compare with developing and developed countries. So consequences, what are the potential consequences are not utilizing demographic dividend properly? The first one is youth unemployment. Large youth population without adequate employment opportunities can lead to high levels of unemployment or underemployment, which may further trigger further social economical consequences. Second one is increased dependency ratio. If the working age population is unable to support a growing dependent population, which are children or elderly, it can strain the social welfare system and can lead to increased financial burdens, especially in a country, democratic country like India, where we are following welfare state policies. Loss of productivity and potential, the opportunity cost. Failing to tap into the productive potential of youth can result in a loss of human capital and hinder economic growth and development as we are predicting now. So we have targets like 5 trillion, 10 trillion, we have targets for GDP expansion. All these goals we may miss. Social disparities. Without opportunities for skill development and employment, certain segments of population may face social exclusion, marginalization, and lead to inequality, further giving challenges to the governance of the society. So the last important one is brain drain. In the absence of local opportunities, skilled individuals may seek employment abroad, leading to loss of talent and expertise, which is very much important in information age. And you know that this is knowledge society. Knowledge is the major parameter which make a country developed country nowadays. So what should we do now? What is in your hands? The first thing we should do is enhance data collection. Include specific questions related to elderly in national data collection exercises like NSS, National Sample Survey, or National Family Health Survey, or census to get accurate, reliable data so that we can have a policy maybe in mission mode. Regulate old age homes. Bring all old age homes under regulatory oversight to ensure the well-being and rights of these elderly residents. And we have to promote elderly self-help groups, encourage formation and operation of self-help groups, specifically catering the elderly population, fostering a sense of community and support. So multi-generational living, which the country is moving away from. Highlight the benefits of elderly individuals living in multi-generational households. Advocate for policies that foster or bolster the living arrangement. So in situ aging support. Prioritize in situ aging by establishing short-term care facilities like creche or daycare centers. This will give a chance for the elderly individual to receive better care by staying within their families. So that is what exactly we are talking about, demographic dividend. There is a demographic shift which we need to understand this transition and respond substantially to the changes so that we can catch the potential of demographic dividend specifically, knowing the later times. So the next important article we are picking up for our analysis is National Dam Safety Team Falls Planning Design of Kaleshwaram Project Barrage in Telangana. So if you try to see the context for UPSC, National Dam Safety Authority, relevant for UPSC preliminary examination, for UPSC main syllabus, it is relevant for GS paper 3 disaster management. So we need to understand such institutions, hierarchies and establishments of such institutions for preliminary perspective. Dams. dams are very important. Management of water resources is very important, especially in federal situation like India. So if you see the context, as per the National Dam Safety Authority report, the pillars of Medigadda barrage are sinking, making the structure useless unless fully rehabilitated. Problem is issues in the project's planning, design, and quality control, and also maintenance of these dams. So if you try to see the background of this particular project, a barrage in Godavari to divert the water part of Kaleshwaram multi-lift irrigation project, which is located in the downstream of confluence of Pranahita and Godavari rivers. So you can see the project setup here and important facts from the project. But the context which I am bringing up here is not the project, but the institutional arrangement. So key findings about that is there is a flaw in design. It is designed as a floating structure but constructed as a rigid, and lack of inspection and maintenance since its commission in 2019, because of which it progressively weakened. Lack of quality control, construction deficiencies due to a lack of stringent quality control during construction. Example, inadequate bearing capacity of the foundational material. So these are related to the project. But if you see the act behind it, National Dam Safety Act 2021. So it is enacted by Union government for proper surveillance, inspection, operation and maintenance of the specified dams, for preventing dam failure and related disasters of dam failures, to provide a clear-cut institutional mechanism to ensure their safe functioning. So the brackets we are picking up here are applies to all the dams with height more than 15 meters or height between 10 to 15 meters. So with certain design and structural conditions, and includes dams built on both inter and intrastate rivers. So this is what the National Dam Safety Act 2021 is looking into. So National Committee on Dam Safety to evolve dam safety policies and recommend necessary regulations. So we are creating an authority, we are creating a committee. So if you see National Dam Safety Authority, so as a regulatory body to implement policies of the national committee, we have National Dam Safety Authority to provide technical assistance to the state or local dam safety organizations, resolving matters between SDSOs of the states and SDSO of the other state or any other dam owner in a particular state, to maintain cooperation with SDSOs for standardization of dam safety related data and practices. So to evolve SOPs in technical and managerial dimensions with proper assistance. So membership, the authority will be headed by a chairman and assisted by 5 members to lead its 5 wings: policy and research, technical regulation, disaster resilience, administration, and finance. So these are the different wings we see in this particular dam safety arena. So this is very much important for your preliminary examinations. We know these are the temples of modern day. Water resource management is one of the important parameter, and it is also the place where more disputes are rising up nowadays. So keep in mind and practice for preliminary examination. So we'll get into the next important article for preliminary perspective. Specifically, 5 Karnataka villages come under surveillance after Zika virus outbreak. So if you try to see the context here, the relevance is Zika virus for preliminary general science, for mains science and technology. In UPSC mains examination, it is science and technology. So in this arena, we have a previous year question, which is going like, consider the following statements. It's a 2017 question. In tropical regions, Zika virus is a disease transmitted by the same mosquito that transmits dengue. Sexual transmission of Zika virus disease is possible. So please try to answer this question. You have one only, two only, both one and only, neither one nor two. Try to see the article, try to answer this question. In this context, you should understand that a mosquito pool in Talakayal Betta village of Chikbalapur district tested positive for Zika virus. So in this arena, what is Zika virus? Zika virus is a mosquito-borne flavivirus first identified in Uganda in 1947 in monkeys and later in humans in 1952 in Uganda and United Republic of Tanzania. So declared as a public health emergency by WHO, it is enveloped positive sense RNA genome. So the outer layer is a lipid layer for this particular genome that can be translated into viral proteins. So it mutated into two important strains, which is Asian strain and African strain. So how it transmits? The basic question is how it transmits. Transmitted by Aedes mosquitoes, which is a vector, particularly Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus. Aedes aegypti transmits not only Zika, like viruses like dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever. It is a vector for all these diseases. The virus can be transmitted from mother to fetus during pregnancy through sexual contact, transfusion of blood, and blood products and organ transplantation also. So by seeing this content, you can answer the previous year question easily, I hope. So if you try to see the symptoms of this particular disease, generally mild and may include fever, rash, conjunctivitis, muscle and joint pain, malaise or headache which lasts for 2 or 7 days. So congenital Zika syndrome, Zika virus infection during pregnancy can lead to infants being born with microcephaly, smaller than normal head size. So this is how normally we identify. And other congenital malformation collectively known as congenital Zika syndrome. This is what you should be keeping in mind for your preliminary examination. So what is the treatment now? No specific vaccine or medicine as of now. Treatment primarily focuses on relieving the symptoms and giving more supportive care like rest, rehydration, etc. So I have here with a comparison table between Zika virus and dengue virus. If you try to see the transmission, if you try to see the vector here, Aedes aegypti, Aedes albopictus. So for dengue, we can see Aedes aegypti. So if you try to see the symptoms, mild, often asymptomatic also, fever, rash, headache, muscle, joint pain, fatigue. It is more severe in dengue virus, fever, headache, muscle and joint pain, rashes, bleeding, low blood pressure and shock. These are the symptoms comparison between these two viruses and complications. If you see, microcephaly is one and Guillain-Barré syndrome is the other one, which is complication in Zika virus. So in dengue virus, dengue hemorrhage fever, dengue shock syndrome. The treatment, as I said, supportive in both the cases, right? And prevention, what is the prevention for this to reduce the disease burden? Avoid mosquito bites. And also vaccine is under development and avoid mosquito bites for dengue virus. Vaccine is available, one such is Dengvaxia. So in this background, there is a prelims practice question here for you. Which of the following is true regarding Information Technology Act 2000 of India? I have discussed few mains and prelims articles in today's daily news analysis. Based on that, I am giving you a prelims practice question. The options are, it primarily deals with issues related to copyright and trademark infringement. No, it does not have provisions for electronic signatures and digital documents. It do have the third one. It provides a legal framework for electronic transaction and prevention of cyber crimes. Yes, this is the right answer, and it applies only to government organizations and not to private entities is the wrong. So it is important that aspirants try understanding every single statement, try to see the statements and understand them and try to answer logically. The next important prelims practice question, consider the following statements. State of World Population Report is released by United Nations Population Fund UNFPA. The replacement ratio in population refers to the ratio of the number of children needed per woman to maintain a stable population size over time, considering mortality rates. So you should have some basic background about fertility rates, replacement rates, right? So these NCERT based definitions are important in answering such questions. So prelims practice question, in this both 1 and 2 are right. So the next prelims practice question, with reference to the National Dam Safety Authority, consider the following statements. It is a regulatory body constituted under National Dam Safety Act 2021. It is charged with implementation of resolving state level dispute, intra-state and interstate or between the parties. So which of the following statements are correct? Both the statements are correct, right? So the next important prelims practice question here is, Zika virus is most prevalent in tropical and subtropical regions. Zika virus is primarily transmitted by Culex mosquito. It's a wrong. You already saw Aedes aegypti. Zika virus cannot be transmitted through transfusion of blood. It can be transmitted through the transfusion of blood. So only one statement is right in the given prelims practice question. Apart from this, we are here with one mains practice question for you. Examine the need of collaborative approach to tackle the delicate challenge of misinformation while safeguarding free speech. Try to write answer in 150 words. It's a 10 marks question. So with this, I would like to wind up today's daily news analysis. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do practice the questions which are given. Do like, share and subscribe the channel.